me do that part. You guys can see me now? Everybody still has use of their computers? Okay, good. So to start us off again, we're going to use a real life example. So thank you, Taylor, for being, I can't even remember what it's called, not a volunteer. What was that? Yeah. If you go in Canvas, under Files, down towards the bottom, there's like a million Salk Institute. So there's Salk Assignment and Salk Assignment Small. The Salk Assignment PSD is pretty large, but click on it, and if it doesn't download automatically, you can go to Salk Assignment Small. They're the same thing, one's just a smaller file than the other. So either one of those will work to start off our example today. So again, Files, and then we've got Salk Assignment and Salk Small. And usually when you click on it, even if it's a large file, when I go to download, see, it was pretty automatic. I don't know what was going on with our network. Did you guys see that it wasn't even uploading like the 2 or 3 I was trying? And then once you get it, go ahead and meet me in Photoshop. So we're all looking at the same thing. Good, I'm starting to see it pop up. Taylor, you can go straight to the source.
Oh no, this one's not mine.
Say that one more time.
This,
Oh, it's not? Is there
no,
2
it might
Taylors
be
in here
that
again?
too.
Oh, hi Taylor. Wrong Taylor.
Not that it matters, but-
I didn't even look at the last name. It was just the first one on my list. Taylor, what's your last name?
Apolonio.
Okay, that's why, because you're Taylor T, right? Okay. All right. Does anybody need another minute to get this up? Or are you guys okay? Okay. I'm going to pause. Actually, I'm not going to pause. What I'm going to do is kind of tell you where we've been and then where we're going, and then we'll kind of jump in. But we're kind of layering all these different techniques into Photoshop. So as I was saying when we were first starting class is we learned how to mask and isolate items. And that allows us to duplicate them into new files, transform them, that's another thing, even advanced transform them, so that we can start mixing images together. And eventually what this will do is it's kind of setting up a foundation for us to set up almost like a faux rendered view of a room. So eventually we'll be taking pieces of furniture, accents, artwork, and bringing them into a space to create the space. Until then, we're just kind of using these abstract assignments to help us learn everything. Now, up until this point, I think you guys have been doing a really good job applying masking and transformation. The one thing that still makes our work look a little bit photoshopped is, I would say, the lighting. So right now, if we look at the file, we've got a really bright sky, a not so bright building, a super shiny baby and shiny ball, and then the pigeon looks good. I think the pigeon looks like it's supposed to be there. I love the pigeon, by the way. And then if you look at the skydiver, since he's in the sky, he probably shouldn't be the brightest thing. Like when objects are further away from you and in the distance, they tend to get a little bit darker. And so in Photoshop, there's 2 different ways to control that. One of them is just using brightness and contrast, but kind of a better, more controlled way is using something called levels. And so for today's class, what we're primarily focusing on today is levels, and then troubleshooting how to just add that level onto a particular layer without it affecting everything else. And so it's going to be levels, masking, maybe grouping, and then depending on how it works, we might even be looking at something called smart objects as well. This is why I'm using this example and not my example, because the levels masking got a little strange, but we'll find out together. So to start us off, what I'd like to do, let's look at this baby, because the baby's kind of in the forefront. So we're going to make a folder, and we're going to call it baby. And luckily, I don't know, why did I call? Taylor was really organized, and her baby is already named Baby, so I'm going to drag and drop it into the folder. And then in just a moment, what I'm going to do is also add a new level filter onto this. Okay, did you guys get that all right? So to add the level filter, you come down here, and I don't think we have worked with these yet. So if I come and hover, these are called new fill or adjustment layers. So throughout the semester, we're going to be working on levels. Next week, we're going to look at hue saturation, and you can kind of play around with some of them too. But basically for our class, that's what we'll be working on. So go ahead and add levels for me. And automatically, it kicks us into the properties menu, right? But if you want, you can click on layers, and you can see that now in our folder, we've got levels on top of the baby layer. So remember, that order is important. The levels will be applied to that baby layer. Everybody with me so far? Okay, I'm going to go back to properties. And really, here's what happens in a nutshell. There are 3 points that you can kind of pull and drag from. And what we're trying to do is match the baby's lighting to the lighting of the rest of the scene. Now tell me, based on how I'm pushing and pulling, and try your own toggles. First question, are the levels changing? Yeah? So the levels change in brightness and contrast. The second question is it applied just to the baby or the whole scene? The whole scene. So yes, we're doing the levels right, but we're not doing it accurately. We need to make sure it's isolated to the baby. So here's what we can do. If we go back to our layer menu, do you see how I already have a mask on the baby? Do you guys remember what button I push on my keyboard to duplicate something? What key I can hold down? It's the Alt key. And remember, on my keyboard, you can't necessarily see it because I'm just a red arrow, right? Yeah, I'm just a red arrow. But if I click on this layer mask that already exists and hold the Alt key, I can drag and drop it onto this layer mask, and it asks me, replace the layer mask, and I'm going to say yes. And then after we do that, first just graphically look. Does it look like they have the same mask now? Yeah. Now we can go to our level properties. And now tell me, is it changing the entire scene or just the baby? Okay, so looking at my screen, how does the baby look? Sick, right? Yep, too bright. Way too bright, maybe too much contrast. So I'm going to give you guys a minute to play with the levels on your own, and then we'll kind of come to a group consensus as to what numbers look the best. Okay? There are some presets, but to be completely honest, they've never helped me a ton. I find that I always have to go through and kind of do them on my own. But you can use these presets as kind of like a good starting point to know where to go. So again, these presets are up here. Anybody find something they like, or are you guys still kind of playing? Still kind of playing? Julianne, what about you? Did you find something you like, maybe?
Around like 30.
Okay, 30.
Output, 30, like 200 teens-ish.
So 30, and then, so sorry, far left number you have at 30, right?
Yeah,
What
it's
about
like
center?
high 20s, 30, like
And then what about this one right here, the middle? Still around 1?
I'm not doing it on the bottom one.
Okay.
So,
And then
so it's 0 over on the far left, 1 in the middle, and 255. I was looking at the bottom numbers.
0, 1, and 255?
Yeah.
Okay. And I think, so there, I think it's just kind of like how the baby came in. 0, 1, and 255?
Oh, so I'm moving around the bottom.
Oh, the output? So what did you take
Yeah.
yours up to? So I usually play with these toggle points right here. I can play with the output here. And I think, let me see, when you change the output, let me see if it does change up here. No. So I'm going to keep the output at the 0 and 255, but I will play with these toggle points. So Soren, what about you? Do you have an acceptable child yet?
I think so. I have
Let's-
a 12
Okay.
and then 0.91
Okay.
and 255.
And 255. Okay. Good.
I messed around a little bit with the output. I just had it at 0 and 241.
241. Okay. All right. I'm going to keep the output at 255. In all honesty, just because I haven't played with that before, I typically just do these right here because it's directly affecting the colors. I think that this baby might still be a little bit bright. I might want to tone it down a little bit. Will somebody give me another set of numbers that we can see? Go ahead.
6,
Uh-huh.
0.75. And
Oh, wait, 0.75?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then
Whoa.
243.
I did that so wrong. And then 43, or 243.
Uh-huh.
My sinuses are still a little clogged. Okay. That looks good. I think it might have a little too much contrast now.
Okay.
Because I think the picture, like if you look at the concrete and like the shadows here, it doesn't look like it's a very bright day. Like if you look at the baby, you can see that it has really stark shadows, but nothing else on the plaza does.
Oh.
Maddie, did you have some numbers you want to share?
0,
Uh-huh.
1.17, and 255.
Okay. All right. That looks a little what I would call softer. I think it's getting a little bit closer. So with these things, kind of, Cammie, right? You asked at the beginning of class about the scale of things. So scale and level are going to be things that kind of come with experience and things to really look at. So right now, this building is kind of driving everything. So if you don't see a lot of like really stark shadows here, your object should kind of follow that. So I kind of like the baby. So if I come here, more contrast. But we want less contrast. So I wouldn't mind even, nope, too much. I wouldn't even mind bumping it up, you know, kind of in this area to where, again, he just starts to look a little bit softer like the rest of the building. Okay. Does anyone else have other numbers they want to share?
In the middle, I had 0.38.
0.38? 0.
Well, yeah, 3.
Got it. And then what numbers did you have on the side?
I left it at 0, but I tried it a couple of times. I don't know, 0 kind of looks the best. 0 and 255.
0 and 255? Okay. Now on this one, I think it changes the skin tone of the baby maybe too much. Does the skin tone of your baby look a little bit darker?
Yeah.
So I would say just based on that, I would slide it back over here so that we're not necessarily changing the baby's ethnicity, but just a little bit of like the tone around the baby. But you can, I mean, if you want to see what you look like with the spray tan, bump it on up. That's next week too. So, I mean, truly, I joke, but these are things that magazine editors, now Instagram editors do to kind of show themselves in the best light. It's all these little things that we're playing with. So I think this is probably, I'm gonna,
Little sun.
I know. Right now, definitely. I'm trying to find that perfect spot where it doesn't have too much contrast. There you go. I'm gonna call that good. So I ended up at 14, 2, and 237. I think that might be a happy medium. Okay. You'll find with all Photoshop files, when different images taken in different lighting conditions come together, it gets a little bit trickier, but it ends up working out. And what I would ask you guys to do, try it on your screen, because my projection from what I see here looks like it has a lot more contrast than what I see on my screen. I think the projection's a little bit different. Okay.
I also realized that the brightness was different on the two monitors. I don't know if that would help anyone else.
Oh, really? Interesting. So that's just right off to the side, right?
Yeah.
Or on the bottom? Whoops.
It's like the little buttons next to the top.
Where are we? Yeah, so right on the bottom right-hand side of your monitor, you can play with your brightness contrast or viewing modes. Oh, what do I do? Okay, that might help as well. Now that we've done that one, let's go and work on our, I mean, honestly, I think the bird looks perfect. I don't think the bird needs to change. It looks just like a nice even tone with everything else. But I do think we can work on the ball and the parasailer. So let's work on the ball since we were just there. So go ahead and make a new folder and call it ball, just because it's easier to keep everything in a folder. We'll do both of them at once. And then, do you guys remember how to add the levels layer? So it's this transformation layer, and then you just go down to levels. Again, I always like to check my levels, just make sure it goes right on top. Okay. So right now, as I have mine set up, is it going to change everything or just the ball? Yep, everything good. So it's just a blank mask. So if I go to my properties and I start moving these around, it does change everything. Now if I go to my layers, tell me again, what key allows me to easily duplicate things? Alt. Good. So if I highlight or click on my layer mask and then hold Alt, I can drag and drop. And so right now I have one of the balls but not ball copy. I can add that one in later. That should be easy to do because it's just a circle. But now if I go to properties, you can kind of start to see where you might want to go with it. What do you guys think on this one? Would you guys want to go kind of like a darker, deeper blue so it doesn't look like it's so bright? Or would you guys want to brighten it up to where it looks like a lot of light is hitting it? Which direction would you guys want to go? Lighter or darker?
Lighter.
Think lighter? To match the baby, yeah. Okay. And with this, in Photoshop, you can kind of decide how light you want to go. So, Cami, I'm going back to your example when you had the skin that got really dark. Skin color, we know the color it's supposed to be, especially if we know the person. But something like a ball, I don't think it matters if it turns from like a lighter blue to a darker blue. That can just be kind of subjective. You guys got that to work okay? And another thing that you can do as well, this seems kind of crazy, but you can also add, you can go into this levels too. And if you want this ball to show, you know, you can use our same masking methods. Like you can go to the quick selection tool and select this ball. And right now, under levels 2, I can't see it. So I just need to go to a brush or a gradient after I've selected it and just make that part of the mask visible. And the thing that's nice is by using that magic wand tool, it kind of isolates it to that point. So I'll show that to you guys one more time. Let me come over here. So again, I know in my layers manager that this is the correct levels, and I copied ball, but it didn't get ball copy. Everybody with me there? So I think to easily add this, what I can do is use my wand tool, and that allows me to select this ball. Okay, not perfect, but pretty good. And once it's selected, on my mask, what color does this need to be in order for it to show the levels? Does it need to be black or white? Sorry? Oh, you guys are killing me today. Thanks. Okay, we want it to be white, and so to add white, right now it's white. If I hit X, I toggle back and forth between black and white, and then I can use the gradient to spill color, or what I did before, I'm going to hit Control Z to undo it. You can use a brush to kind of color it in. Okay. And I have some haze going on the outside, so I can come back and clean that up later. I just made my my mask a little bit too big. All right, and then for the last one that we're going to do together, it's the paraglider, parasailer, I'm not quite sure. I want you guys to try that one on your own from the beginning. So that includes making the group, dropping it in there, adding the level. Try that one on your own to see how it goes. And the parasailer too, just to kind of see if we're using the same techniques and approaches. So I always like to create a folder first. I'm gonna pop it out of the group, I don't want it in there. Para. Then once I have it on its own, I'm going to add levels again. Alright, now everybody with me, what is the key I hold to duplicate something? Thank you. You hold the Alt key down, drag and drop it. And now when I go to my properties, I really want to fade this guy out. Oh, this is a tricky one. Yeah.
My like toolbar thing doesn't show like a property thing like that.
Let me get it for you. Oh no. Ooh. If you go to Window, you should be able to turn on properties. And if it's checked, what I would do is I would uncheck it so it kind of hides and then reappears again. Try that, and if it doesn't work, I'll come over and I'll try to help you track it down. Okay. Now with this one thing that we'll have to do is to kind of ignore the white areas for now and just try to get the rest of it to blend. There might be one other trick to show on this one too. I'm going to jump ahead and show you guys one other thing to help us with the parasailer, only because there's so much white, it's kind of throwing it off. On the actual parasailer level, or layer, if you click on it, do you see right here we have this option for opacity? What this allows us to do is if we turn it down, it kind of makes him disappear. And I just want to lighten him up a little bit. And essentially what that's doing is it's actually blending him into the sky. And I think that's what we need to do on this one. So there's two ways of doing it. Do you see where my cursor is? If you look on your screen, if you put your cursor over the word opacity, it's a finger that has a left and a right arrow. And so if you move your mouse left or right, it turns it up and down. You can do it that way, or you can just pull down here and use this toggle. But I think that that helps quite a bit on top of the levels too. Since that one's in the sky, I think we can not necessarily cheat, but kind of use our artistic tools as we see necessary. So let me know if the opacity helps that read a little bit better. Uh-huh.
I can't select anything.
Okay, let's see where your cursor went. Do you think you're frozen, or?
Well, I can bring down the windows and stuff. Like pull stuff up. I can't.
Weird. So hit V for me. Let's see if anything moves. So was that V? Hit V again. Now hit B for brush. Let's see if it's actually changing. Go to window for me. And go to workspace and then make it do reset. And now hit cancel. If you're stuck in the masking. And now you should be okay. Now, are you good now?
And then I was trying to.
So that's already on there. You don't have to do it again. See how they match each other?
What do you mean? Oh, this right here.
Yeah. So you only do that when it's white, and you had already placed the mask on top of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you're good there.
It like kept bringing it up, but I swear, like I'm like swearing all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, try the other one to see if it works, but the way that you have it right now is correct.
Okay,
No, that's correct. Yeah. Uh-huh.
how can I say shoot?
How can you select which way?
Yeah, shoot. Okay.
So right now you, like what you want to do is put like this mask here, right? You have to hold the Alt key or it'll get rid of the other one. And you've already made a copy of him and you only need, so what you want to do, so see how you're clicking the layer? You want to click the layer mask, so delete that one and then delete the other copy too. And now click this, click the name, and then click that, delete that one too. Yep, good. And now, you have layer, and then Alt, and then drag and drop. Yes. There you go. Now it'll just be on the parasailer. And so see how right now you're on the mask? Yep. Now you're on the right one. You got it.
Now, go into the top properties.
So go to adjustments. And then you should be on levels. Okay. Oh wait, it added another one. So sorry, delete that one. And then after you delete it, delete it again because that was just the mask. Nope, sorry, delete that one too.
Oh, yeah.
Click on the levels. Yep, and now go to properties. And it'll show you the properties of your levels. Yep. So what was that?
Let me go to the properties.
Okay, go back to your layers for me. And it's a really, what have you, is that a mask that you've selected, right? And what should you select? Right next to it.
This one?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
I don't realize how to work on the mask.
So if you want to work on the mask, you
you should click on the mask. If you want to work on both levels, then you click on the levels. So if you go to properties, now you should see the properties of the levels. Thank you. And then, Cammy, did you have your hand up too?
Yeah. I think, I don't know, I probably gonna back to what I did, so, I heard what you said to her, so I got this one, but then there was, when I was going over one of these, there was like a white box behind it, and I missed a step somewhere, so.
So tell me what you're trying to do. Tell me what you're trying to do and I'll try to help you.
I'm trying to change the lighting on the ball.
Got it.
So
Okay. So click on your levels, because the levels is what you click on to change it. So right now, see how you're on the mask of it? Okay, and then now go to properties. And I can tell you that you're still gonna run into some trouble. When you change it, do you see how like nothing happens?
Right.
Go. Yeah, so right now I think what's happening, you only have it on the small ball. So hit your slash button to give you a preview of the mask that you're on. Yep, so it's only for that one. And so if you want it on both of them, you would just add the other wall to it too.
Right, and is that where you use the brush tool and make it light?
Yeah, so I selected it first. So I used the wand tool to grab the ball. And I used nope, not that one.
Oh, the.
There you go. Now hit Control D.
If it comes up again, I'm sorry, it would just come up with a
Okay.
little white square behind it,
Where?
but
Okay.
I don't know.
Oh, keep going.
I'm not just gonna see this stuff.
Right. So once you get through this one right here, I'd also like you guys to open up your own Salk Institute, like reopen that one and go through the levels. One comment that I will make, again, I wish I could see you guys twice a week. I think it would make life a little bit easier, but please practice on your own. Like, you know, we do have our homework, but I think one thing we could all improve on, and it's just, Photoshop does not make it easy for us, but it's so subtle as to what happens when you click on different areas of the layer name. So for example, right now, what am I clicked on exactly? Huh? Yep. Yep, so I'm on the mask of levels 3, and if I wanted to adjust the levels, would this help me? I'd want to click on the actual level icon. So again, it doesn't make it easy for us because everything's like this tiny little difference, but really pay attention to that today. So take it slow, keep looking to your right at your layers menu. We're not really looking to the left that much today because everything's really layers heavy. But I'm going to pause the lecture.